Thank you for coming along for us to ask you some questions about your new film, Sundown.
Thank you for having me.
How did you first come up with the idea for Sundown?
Well, I'm interested in exploring the idea of what happens in real life. If you saw my film Coming Home last year, you can really see the issues I expressed for someone coming home from the army. Well, this year I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to stick with social realism, but I still wanted to portray this in a more interesting way. So I created a thriller social realism hybrid. This allowed me to capture realist issues and capture the audience's attention with some tension building scenes.
And can you tell me about some of the realist issues you explore?
Well, I wanted to explore the theme of mental health, but not so obviously. So by combining the thriller, I could allow those audience who just wanted to watch a film to enjoy the thriller part of it, but to also add meaning through hidden micro elements for those who would understand what the character is going through and relate to her.
And how did you know that people would be interested?
Well, I undertook audience research in order to find out who would be interested. I used Google Forms to do quantitative research and to find out the amount of people that would be interested in certain genres, and then I analysed it. Many people were interested in the idea of thriller, hence combining it with the subject I chose to portray.
Did you do any other research?
I also did qualitative research to find out what people could think about it. This kind of research allowed me to find out detailed answers of people's responses to my idea. To do this, again, I used Google Forms, but also a paper-based survey with pictures so people could analyse what they thought, and I could give this to selected people and get more accurate response from my specific target audience. As I was doing a hybrid, I found that the film would not only attract social realism lovers, but also those who enjoy thrillers, allowing me to have a wider target audience.
How do you feel these questionnaires impacted on your film?
Well, to gain responses to the questionnaire was based on a synopsis I had written. There were a few people who asked the question of whether my stakes were high enough, so in my original synopsis the ending was left on a cliffhanger. People wondered if this was a good idea for a short film, so I redrafted my synopsis and changed the ending, adding meaning to it, and also highlighting more of the protagonist's mental illness and loneliness.
Oh, that sounds interesting. What was your first idea?
It's a bit embarrassing to talk about my bad ideas, but I guess everyone has to start somewhere. In the original synopsis, I had written about a lonely girl who was kidnapped because she was lost after her dog ran away. And this isn't a very interesting thing for social realism, maybe more for thriller, but it's not really what I was focusing on.
Well, I can definitely say after watching Sundown, I'm glad you changed it.
So am I, and it's thanks to my audience that I did.
Was there a particular structure that you kept to?
In my film, there is absolutely no dialogue. There is suggested dialogue, such as mouthing the words, but I considered including, but it was advised against this. Marilyn Milgram says this helps the audience establish the world the character is in and pick up on things that are around them, rather than focusing on the dialogue itself.
Well, I can say it was very successful. I was looking forward to every detail to seeing what was going to happen.
Thank you.
Now, I've heard of this point.
10-point plan?
Well, that's it. I knew I'd heard it somewhere. How did that help you?
Well, it helped me make sure I had everything in check. The stakes were high enough, and etc. etc.
Now, I understood it took many drafts for you to get your poster to such a high standard. Did you use your helpful audience again?
Yes, I did. I sent out another paper-based survey that I could give to specific people with the original poster on it and received some very helpful advice.
And what was that advice?
My first poster was extremely basic. I had the same image, but all of the font was the same. I did not have the hierarchy of the features on the poster. I also didn't have any of the reviews or awards, so from then on I kept adding and analysing till I got it to the highest standard.
Well, I have to say that I really enjoyed the film, and the poster was of a very high quality. I'd like to thank you for coming on to our show today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Lauren Oakes.